Thanks for staying. Right now, let's begin talking about the impact of imports and forex restrictions on the Nigerian economy. Joining me via Zoom is Harrison Erimosele, who is an economist. Good afternoon, Mr. Harrison.
Good afternoon.
Nice for you to join us on the show today. So, imports is something that we've come to find that the Nigerian economy engages in a lot. Now, how do you think imports has been able to sustain the Nigerian economy?
Okay, imports. Has it really sustained the Nigerian economy? You say? Anyway, in a liberal world, yes, when I mean liberal world, I mean there's this fair kind of economy. Yes, import exports. You see. Sovereign governments, they don't actually frown at it. But given the economic circumstance we are in, the current world, where trade, international trade as it's real, is not viewed as a non-zero sum game. By that I mean, people don't appear, countries don't appear to see export trade as win-win situation. They see it as a zero-sum game, such that one benefit is at the expense of the other trading partners' position in trade. So, import, back to your question, how import has sustained the economy? Well, to a large extent, it was, but again, it was at the detriment of our economy because when we import commodities, we are literally giving our businesses to our trading partners, and then by so doing, we are reducing investment internally, reducing employment opportunities, and overall, societal welfare is reduced. So, that import has sustained the Nigerian economy is, a mixed kind of situation. We cannot actually say if it has sustained or it has not sustained.
Okay, I asked that question because having much of import means that there is high domestic demand for those goods or products that are being imported. Now, if those goods are not imported into the country, it means that the demand cannot be satisfied, and then there will be shortages of a lot of those products supplied. But because they are being imported, so it means that in one way or the other, the demand is being met. So that's the sustenance I'm looking at. Now, what have we become so import dependent on several products?
Okay, why have we become so import dependent?
Yes.
Yes, it simply boils down to the managers of the economy. You see, in the 80s, in the 70s, it wasn't much of, we are not highly dependent on import, let's say, up to the 80s, up to 90s, I think about 90s, from 90s, in fact, since the SAP, the so-called SAP program that was imposed on the economy, I think that was the beginning of highly dependence on imports. Whichever case, import, what it actually does is to cover a gap, a demand gap, domestic demand gap.
Yes.
Like you have rightly said, it's true. It covers a demand gap, such as because the market in the Nigerian economy is quite high, and so we demand for a variety of commodities. Now, but when our import for these commodities, if the import is high, that suggests that the economy itself is not producing. So it is quite embarrassing to do imports on something as elementary, something as now big as toothpick, alcoholic water, and all whatnot. But at any rate, importations close domestic demand gap.
Okay.
To that extent, you can say yes, it sustains the economy. But I don't think that kind of sustenance is something that we can endure for long, because it is in a way, it's at the detriment of the economy actually.
Okay. Now let's take it from closing the domestic gap. Okay. We've always had trade deficit. At least we've had over the past 6 to 10 years, we've had a trade deficit because our export is quite low compared to the imports that we engage in. But right now, importers are having a challenging time bringing in products due to a lot of restrictions. Let's begin with Forex, access to Forex. What's your take on that?
We have to take a U-turn, because although time was when imports sustained the economy to some extent because of the demand gap in the economy. Now, but in 2015, the government that emerged didn't want to continue in that dimension, because, quite frankly, heavy reliance on importation does more harm than good to any economy in the recent world. So, and that was why the new government that emerged in 2015 thought of it that, okay, I think about 41 items of imported products were restricted, and then such that this the importers cannot access forex to import, because you need forex, you need dollars to get these things imported. But they have to put restrictions on about 41 items. As of today, those items have increased to, I think, about 45 items. Now, the whole idea boils down to, we want to reverse our trade deficits to trade surplus. We just have to do it because the economy is heavily lamenting. The economy is bleeding. So the government of the day is putting efforts to ensure that we have to slow down on importation, particularly on products we have comparative advantage in. Rice, like for example, rice. From the list I saw, rice topped the charts. Rice is number one on the list. And today, the Nigerian economy produces about 8 million metric tons of rice. You see what that restriction has actually resulted to. So the sudden restrictions on these items, imported items, is nothing other than a policy of import substitution and export promotion. I think that's just a wrong idea. And if we should go in that direction, then it will mean well to Nigerians. Although, in the beginning, there is something called the J-curve theory. Underneath the J, you see, if you follow the trace, in the beginning, when you apply such a policy, it appears very harsh and severe, because of course it's going to generate untold economic hardship to Nigerians. But again, of course, the situation may appear worsening, but with time we'll begin to feel some respites, so to speak. So that is the core reason behind these restrictions, why those items should be restricted.
Okay, looking at the items that are restricted, we have rice, we have poultry. For rice, it seemed to be going well because deliberate effort was made at that sector to ensure that rice production increased in Nigeria. Now, for poultry and some other prohibited items that cannot be imported to Nigeria or should not be imported, are we developing our capacity in the production of this area?
You see, let's look at it this way. This is more of agriculture now. Okay. In the agricultural sector, there are four major funds, four major components, so to speak. We have the crop production, we have the livestock, we have fishing, and the last one is forestry. Now, the crop production is doing extremely well, in my own opinion, because, like I mentioned earlier, 8 million metric tons of rice is no joke. As a matter of fact, I think 2020, there was a report that as of 2020, Nigeria is the 14th largest producer of rice in the world. The first is China, but Nigeria is 14th. So imagine a world of one land, it's 80-something countries. Nigeria occupying the 14th position. To me, it's laudable. It's something that we should all be proud of. But looking at livestock, where we have, of course, the meat, the milk, and then the fishing, and then chickens put together. These forms of agriculture, for me, they have some political undercurrents, because in our today Nigeria, livestock that used to be a source, a part of a component of agriculture that we used to get meat from.
Yeah.
I think it has been politicized. Why? Because today we hear of herdsmen, conflicting with landowners.
Okay, the headers farmers clashes impacting agricultural production.
Yeah, so this, of course, including, apart from the clashes of herdsmen,
okay,
banditry issues, insecurity generally,
okay,
has significantly, truncated the operations in livestock, fishing, and forestry. It has really, reduced the operations in this area, and that is why, even up to this moment, Nigeria doesn't seem to have the capacity to supply this agricultural produce in these other components. But as regards the crop production, I think, to be fair to these governments, they have done extremely well.
Okay, well, you just give kudos to the government doing well in the agricultural sector, but that is not a takeaway from the fact that we still have deficits. Crop production. Okay, we still have.
Yes, that is in terms of rice, beans,
okay,
cassava.
Okay, but in animal production, livestock production, we seem to still have a deficit, because every now and then we keep hearing of seized poultry products imported into the country. That means that there is lots of smuggling activities to make up for the deficit. Now, do you think what we should be doing is to just put a stop on importation of some of this product that we have a huge demand for, or wait till we have capacity before there should be an outright stoppage to that in order to curtail smuggling?
Okay, the fact is, you see, this policy dimension of, trying to beef up internal agricultural operations, try to beef it up before we say, okay, we put a stop or try to restrict some of these items from being imported. That policy has been tried over and over again. It didn't take us anywhere. So I think what the government of today is doing is that, okay, everyone must go back to the farm, and we must incur the economic costs in the interim.
Okay, sorry to cut in at this point, but you know the challenges with going back to farm right now. You just talked about insecurity a while ago. Don't you think that is one factor discouraging a lot of persons from going into agriculture, like subsistence farming, for their own family sustenance at this point?
Please, I wouldn't mind if you repeat this comment again, please.
Okay, you talked about the government advocating for people to go back to farm or to farming. Yes, but a while ago you mentioned insecurity and some other forms, other clashes, the farmers' headers clashes that has been a hindrance to agricultural activity. Now, don't you think that is the primary reason why a lot of persons can't go into farming right now, at least for subsistence farming, in order to sustain their family? So should that be the approach, encouraging subsistence farming to make up for the deficit we have in food production?
You see, I have a feeling that the agricultural sector itself,
okay,
this aspect of livestock and fishing,
okay,
I have a feeling that it has been hijacked by some event-seeking individuals. Whatever their motive, whatever their purpose, I don't know, because the frequency is alarming. Only recently, I heard of I don't know how to tag them now. Somewhere, I think in Zamfara State, I'm not very sure, issuing threats to the governor of that state that his relations, about two, I think his wife and one other persons, were killed by some local vigilantes, and that he has issued a threat note to the governor of that state that he would kill 200 persons. And these 200 persons, he was targeting at even farmers too. So, and then that if he's not giving a ransom of 30 million. So, in the honest part is that there must be some political undercurrents in all of these activities. Now, given the insecure situation, I want to recommend that although it appears the time is running out, what this government would have done ever since is you create some clusters in different community or in different region, as the case may be. This, by clusters, I mean you just mark a space and say, okay, do your farming here, and then there should be heavy military or security presence. And then in each locality, in each state, in that order, countrywide.
Okay.
Then with heavy security presence, I think that's the way to go, because insecurity actually, yes, is not making the livestock and fishing and forestry to actually prosper as much as crop production. But somehow, even in the face of insecurity, crop production seems to be doing well. So I think the government of the day has to look at the factors that are making crop production to do well and why livestock. But I think basically for livestock, it's about misunderstanding and conflict between owners of lands and then herders wanting to encroach. That's it. But again, whether that should not be a cause for government to open the border for these other items, particularly livestock and fishing. This government believes that insecurity can be tackled.
Okay.
And that is what they still rely on. And so that's why they still believe that this other component of agriculture will surely pick somehow. So, but I don't know.
Okay, while we're waiting for insecurity to be tackled squarely in Nigeria, and farmers can go to farms without having to be scared for their lives, food inflation is really rising by the day, and that's also given rise to overall the inflation that we get to see in Nigeria. Every day the price of one food item increases, as the day goes by. So what do we do about that? You mentioned considering reopening of the borders. Would that make sense at this point?
Yeah, at this point, it will be like a short-term measure to cushion the harsh economic reality of Nigerians. Yes, it does appear to be like that. If we should open the border for a while for livestock, fishing related products to come into the country. It will be, but again, if you really look at this food inflation we are currently alarmed about. Food inflation, if you actually narrow it down to what are the items that are actually experiencing inflationary spikes, you find that this food inflation is more impactful on livestock, fishing related products, not even the crop, not even crop production.
But we also have rice. We also have rice.
Yes,
the price of rice keeps increasing.
The price of meat, the price of fish, the price of eggs, these are all
and
livestock.
Some imported crops or crop products.
Sorry?
And some imported crop products.
Okay, some imported.
Yes. We also have increase in the prices of some imported crop products.
Okay. Well, if you want to see, I don't think we are importing crop production related products. What we see is smugglers bringing these things in. They still smuggle in even foreign rice. I don't think it is actual export.
Apart from rice, the other industries who make use of some of these crops, like sorghum, wheat, they also import these things because they are not adequately produced in Nigeria. So some of this crop produce come into the country imported, and in not just the headers farmers clashes impacting the non-availability of this product at an adequate measure, we also have the Ukraine-Russia war impacting. So what do we do to ensure that we have enough of these produce in Nigeria, as they also serve as raw materials to industries in the food value chain?
Though I want to assume I got it correctly.
What do we do? My question is this: what do we do? We have a shortage of supply of a lot of products, even agricultural products. Yes, some of them we've been importing. Some of them have been restricted from importation. But what do we do if we are to open the borders for those products that there's been an outright ban, to ensure that we do not relax in our capacity building, to ensure that we have enough of this product, so that it's a gain on both sides? There is importation going on, and then there's also production going on. How do we marry these two together for our benefits?
Okay, it is well understood now. You see, the question you have posed now is like already agreeing that the root cause of food inflation is as a result of insufficient supply of these products to Nigerians, to Nigerian markets. I think that's the position I think your question inferred.
Yes.
Now, but the thing is, I don't even agree that it is because of insufficient supply of this product.
Okay, so what is the issue?
It is a factor.
Okay.
But it is not the major one.
Okay.
I think the core factor is energy. The energy crisis that is ongoing in Ukraine.
Okay.
And now, though we are at comparative advantage in terms of crude oil production, but it's so sad that importation of refined products top the import chart. So it's really sad. And now, because we import refined petroleum products into the country, and on one hand, is highly subsidized. Now, don't forget, because of the Russian-Ukraine war, there is, to some extent, energy crisis globally.
Yes.
In that there is now shortage, there is now a distortion in the supply chain of energy.
Okay.
And for that reason, our independent independent marketers who are given license to import this refined products, we do it at a very high cost. And so when they import it in, because energy is everything in our modern world, so it cut across everything. Now, what I think we're experiencing today, per se, is what I call structural or sectoral inflation. By that I mean, when there is a disturbance in a particular sector, in our context, energy in the sense that, as some, was it last month, we had a shortage in refined petroleum products.
Yes, and we still have that. We still have that happening right now.
Okay, it's still even ongoing.
Yes.
So in some section of the country, it's still much scarce.
Okay.
And now, petrol, of course, is connected to facilitate transportation.
Okay.
And then even the CBN authority has also identified something that in the agricultural sector where these products are made available, if you go to that point and buy, you find that it's very affordable. From that point of address to the point of the final consumers, transport, we take.
Okay, so in a nutshell, the energy crisis has impacted on the price of food.
Yes, the price of food is the root cause of inflationary spike of food, prices of food.
Okay.
So, food inflation, in my view, has its root from the energy crisis we suffer today in Nigeria.
Okay.
The price of petroleum product now has gone up, and that cuts across everything we do. And as such, of course, business people who are in the business of making profit must meet up their profit margin, whatever. So they must hike food, even when they get it at a low cost on the agricultural point. But when it gets to the market, because of the effect of high transport costs,
the price becomes increased. Okay.
That's what I think fundamentally is the problem.
Okay, as we wrap up on the discussion,
insufficient supply of livestock and coupled with banditry activity that have led to insecurity, they all conspire to give rise to food inflation.
Okay, so
but I still believe strongly that the main culprit lies in energy shortage.
Okay, so in your opinion, it is not in us boosting production because you think production is okay. It is about handling energy crisis.
Yes, it's about handling energy supply. Energy supply. It has to be adequate supply.
Okay.
I know government is, trying its best to say, okay. Only recently, government rolled out another bill giving part that went through Senate that okay, let's increase the amount of subsidy from one amount to about 4 trillion.
Okay.
All of this is to ensure that there's adequate supply of petroleum products.
Okay.
But there are hiccups, there are frictions in the economy, and there are also rent seekers that are not allowing these things to move smoothly.
Okay.
So, of course, there are people hold this product for certain reasons. Of course, they want to get, economic rents, that is excessive profit.
Okay.
And these are the effects that spill over to food and then rising prices of food. That's how I see it.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Harrison Eremusele, for being on the show today. We appreciate your time with us, and we do hope that we will be next to call on you. You would oblige us.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Thank you very much for being a part of the show, and we appreciate your time with us.
Oh, thank you.
Do enjoy your weekend.
Oh, thank you.
And I'll go on a quick break. When we return, we continue looking at the impact of import and Forex restrictions on the economy. Dr. Harrison has given us some insight as to how it's impacting food inflation. Now we will look at as impacting the price of other commodities that you and I make use of in the country. Stay. At the beginning, I told you that I'll be having two great economists here on the show. So I've kept to my word. I have the other economist here. It's not just an economist this time. Destiny Obu is an economist and as well a statistician. Welcome, Destiny.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon.
It's always a pleasure. It seems like you're still holidaying.
Yeah.
Because you still look fresh.
No, really.
Easter hasn't ended at your end, I suppose.
In fact.
All right, now we're looking at the impact of import and Forex restrictions on the Nigerian economy. Now, I haven't talked a bit extensively about the impact of import restrictions. There's one side of it, that's the Forex restrictions, which also affects importers.
Yeah.
Why do we have Forex restrictions?
Yeah. The idea basically is just to encourage certain aspects of the economy to develop.
Okay.
Because it is believed that when you spend foreign exchange, then you have less of it to keep. But if you're able to produce locally and export, possibly export, then you have a lot of foreign exchange to use. But the problem is, because Nigeria is import dependent, we always see ourselves being in the foreign exchange crisis, looking for foreign exchange. Because our major earner is crude oil, when something happens to the crude oil market, it affects our foreign exchange and our reserves and things like that. So our major foreign exchange earner is crude oil. Now, what we would have expected is to have a well-diversified economy where we have agriculture, manufacturing, industrial base, other sources of foreign exchange. So we'll normally face these problems as long as we did not solve the long-term problems. We are dealing with the smoke and ignoring the fire. Okay. The reason, the cost, the solutions we provide, foreign exchange and things like that. We forget there are two sectors of an economy. They have the real sector and then we have the monetary sector. Now, the monetary sector is mainly cosmetic because they deal with the problem from the indicators. Whereas the real sector are the fundamentals that determine what happens in the monetary sector. In other words, if there's no productivity, which is the long-term problem, then the foreign exchange problem will always continue. What the CBN can simply do is just to simply manage it, like what they're doing now. They're using what's called a managed float, trying to restrict how we spend the foreign exchange we already have acquired through what we are doing, and how to find a way to ensure that we don't get to a certain point where there's a crisis. And then the disparity between the market rate and others becomes totally unmanageable. So, but the problem is actually located within the real sector. What is happening to our productivity? What is our foreign exchange earning power? What's our industrial base? Why are we so much dependent on import inputs and things like that? Those are the long-term problems. So I think that's where the fight is won or lost.
Now, beginning with the short-term solution to this problem. We've seen that, yes, there's import restrictions. There are products for which you would not get Forex for you to make imports. But we've also seen that one of the problems that the IMF and even the World Bank seems to hammer on is our multiple exchange rates. Do you see that being the problem, really?
Yeah, of course. I must say something. When we see the reports of the IMF and the World Bank, we must understand that the statistics they churn out are simply based on sensible economics. What we call sensible economics, global economics, what is to be expected, and this kind of things. Ideally. But we must understand that our economy is not amenable to the perfect economic variables.
We have our peculiarities.
We have structural problems. And these structural problems makes it difficult for our economy to respond to the economic fundamentals as represented by the World Bank and others. For instance, they will tell you, allow the exchange rate to float. Now, when you allow the exchange rate to float, we expect that the forces of demand and supply will create a certain equilibrium so that we will not even need to have foreign exchange base in the first place. There will be no balance of payment surplus and things like that. It will correct itself. That's what theory says. But if you do that in Nigeria, it will not correct itself. Why? because the import elasticity, the rate at which we import our inputs, is so high that if you try to allow it to float, it will float out of margin. And then we will not be able to even buy it in the first place.
Okay.
And so the federal government, in its wisdom, decided to say, okay, we can't leave our economy to the first of demand and supply. We have what we call market failures. There are a lot of market failures in this country that make variables not to act sensibly. And so they said, okay, let us do a managed float. What's a managed float? A managed float means sometimes the CBN comes to interfere into the market and try to control a band by which the foreign exchange can not go beyond.
Okay.
So if it appears to be going too high, they pump more money, more foreign exchange. If it appears to be going too low, they withdraw more foreign exchange. So that one is able to manage it so that it will not go beyond a range of values.
Okay.
Now that type is what, in our own wisdom, will solve the problem in the short term, at least.
Okay. Picking it from there, so that the exchange rate doesn't go beyond a certain range. But we find that it's almost uncontrollable at the parallel markets. That control is only effective with the banks.
Yes.
So how do we handle that?
Yeah, like I said, the parallel market and the official exchange rate, the more the distance between them, the more realistic the value is.
Okay.
That's what it means to the economist. It means it's unrealistic. If you sell something at 415 naira in the official exchange rate, and then you sell it at 570 in the black market, the disparity, the distance between the two shows
sometimes even goes as high as 600.
Yes, what it simply tells you is that it's unrealistic at the way it is. Okay, but how do you harmonize something that is not totally in your control? Okay, the parallel market is the parallel market. They exist to solve gap problems.
Okay.
Walk up to a bank and say you want foreign exchange, for instance. I assure you, most of them do not have to sell.
But where does the parallel market have to sell?
Yes, that's why it's called black market. We have what we call round tripping. A lot of banks actually illegally sell these same things to these parallel market people. It's like when you want to buy petrol when petrol is scarce.
You go to a
petrol station, they tell you it's not available.
But you go to the black market.
In the night, somehow they sell it to some people. So if the banks, for instance, discover that if you sell it at 415 naira officially, you will not make profit. So some people, I mean, I'm not saying that, but why we have the black market is because there's some illegality inside.
Okay.
So if somebody's willing to buy it for you for 450, officially you cannot sell it beyond 415. And you may actually hold it and sell it to the person for 450, who will sell it for somebody else for 520.
Okay.
Okay. So, good question. Where does the parallel market people?
Because the banks restrict the Forex that you can have access to.
Yes.
Some importers have complained. Someone at one point said he needed Forex about some thousands of dollars.
Yes.
And what he was given was just a fraction of what he actually needed. But going to the parallel market, he got exactly what he needed, but at a higher rate. So where does the parallel market get Forex from that the banks cannot have access to?
And that's why we call it the underground economy.
Okay.
It's underground because there's some criminal element of it. The black market has a criminal element. It is not official. It actually goes against the wisdom of fixing the exchange rate in the first place.
Okay.
Okay. So when you fix the exchange rate, you are creating a problem. It's either a maximum price or a minimum price.
Okay.
And then in this case, if the exchange rate is fixed at too low, then it will be hoarded. And then you see most of this foreign exchange in the black market instead of the official market.
Okay.
If it's fixed too high, then the black market will disappear and come to the official. So we use it to measure the realistic, the connection between the federal government determined rate and the realistic rate as determined by market fundamentals.
Okay.
And that's why I said the closer those two rates are, the closer, the truer the values are.
Okay.
But the more dispersed they are, the more it tells you that that official rate is not correct.
Okay.
It's not a true measure of the value.
Okay.
So it therefore means that most economists will tell you the value, depreciate the currency, find a way to reduce it so that you get close to the black market rate.
Okay.
So that's the wisdom of it. One thing is certain. When you see such disparities, it means that that figure which they quote as the official is no longer tenable, does not represent the market fundamentals.
Okay. Now, in addressing this, the CBN came up with a policy of restricting Forex to Bureau de Change operators.
Yeah.
Now, if that policy is rescinded, will it correct this?
Of course. There was a reason for the policy in the first place.
Yes.
The argument the central bank said was there was some fraud.
Okay.
some money laundering through the black market.
Okay.
You know, they went beyond their limits and started finding a way to siphon money out of this country. A lot of people were able to move dollars and a lot of currencies out of this country through the bureau de change.
Okay.
That was criminal, totally criminal.
Okay, but has that stopped right now? Because right now, they cannot actually question the parallel market, the source of their Forex.
Yes, they can't do that now. But the CBN, I think the solution to that problem, like I advocate, is we're supposed to do regulation.
Okay.
Now, a blanket ban or blanket solutions do not solve the problem. You just say you are not selling to BDCs anymore. And that doesn't solve the problem. The problem is if you feel there's a crime element in it,
okay,
and then they were using it as, they were abusing the privileges, then you regulate. You go tough on regulation.
Okay.
You don't just blanket it out. The truth is this, now that they've stopped it, has the problem solved? Has it made the exchange rate better? Those are the questions. The purpose of a policy is to correct something.
Okay.
Now, what have we noticed now? Are we now better before the policy or after the policy? Now the rate is getting wider, the exchange rate is getting weaker.
The margin is just, it keeps expanding by the day.
So what exactly were they trying to achieve by a blanket ban? Now, if we have studied it for about 6 or 7 months now, we have not seen any major improvement. That it means that that's not the solution to the problem.
Okay.
Maybe we need to bring the BDCs to a table and do sensible discussions with them and find a way to remove that money laundering issues out of it and solve it. We don't use simple solutions to solve complex problems. Okay, the problems are complex, so they require a whole lot of consultation and complex solutions. So, but we like the easy way out. We like ban this, close that. If you check most of the solutions of the federal government, it's always you just bring the hammer, you just hit it, close it like that. There are reasons for the existing problems.
Okay.
Why don't you tackle the problems the way they appear instead of trying to just give one hammer to solve it? It doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't. It simply is cosmetic. Okay. It simply postpones the evil day, like we always say, because the problems will keep coming.
Okay, I wish we had more time to dwell in this because we would have had reason to look at how to make an easy way for importers because we are still import dependent. But I hope that the Apex, that's a CBN, which is the regulator of the financial system in Nigeria, will look into all of this and find a way to just make it easy for importers to have access to Forex. Thank you very much, Destiny Owu, for coming on the show today.
Thank you for
having me.
And as
our package, my name is Blessing Eji. Enjoy your weekend.